The GPS chimed with artificial cheer. You have arrived at your destination. But instead of the quiet satisfaction most travelers might feel, Maya Williams tightened her grip on the steering wheel and stared out through the windshield. In front of her, a sleek structure of steel and glass jutted out from the Colorado mountainside like a blade, forged by a high-end fashion house, not designed by someone who understood the spirit of mountain retreats. This wasn't the sanctuary she'd pictured in her mind, the rustic warmth promised in every brochure of Solaria Pines. It looked more like a corporate tech headquarters than a place for healing and reflection. "Welcome to authentic mountain living, huh?" she muttered under her breath, a bitter smile tugging at the corner of her mouth, half sarcasm, half heartbreak. She reached for her camera bag, pulling out her phone and snapping a few photos. The influencer facade required documentation, even when every cell in her body just wanted to throw the phone in the back seat and march into management demanding answers. But Maya Williams, once the founder and CEO of Solaria Retreats, was officially dead to this place. Today she was Leela Mason, a wellness travel blogger with 50,000 followers and a perfectly curated brand focused on modern female self-care through mindful escapes. Creating a fake identity had been disturbingly easy. What was far harder was keeping her mouth shut for the past 3 months as she read through dozens of anonymous complaints from current and former staff. One said they'd been reassigned to the night shift and had their hours slashed after reporting harassment. Another recounted training the very person who replaced them, a man who now earned $15,000, 0 cents more a year. But most haunting of all were the quiet pleas from women who had once believed in this company's message of female empowerment, only to be left adrift, unseen and unheard when it mattered most. The automatic doors slid open with a polished whoosh, releasing a wave of lavender-scented air and the soft strumming of acoustic guitar from hidden ceiling speakers. Maya stepped inside. The lobby gleamed. Cream leather seating, reclaimed wood accents, and backlit glass panels engraved with inspirational quotes. She believed she could, so she did. The future is female. Strength begins within. The irony hit her like a punch to the chest. 5 years ago, Maya had written half of those phrases herself during sleepless branding meetings, fighting to breathe life into a dream that was now barely recognizable, a vision that had since been sold, rebranded, and hollowed out. "Welcome to Solaria Pines," a soft voice greeted. Behind the reception desk stood a young woman with tired eyes and a practiced smile. Her name tag, styled in the custom font Maya had personally approved years ago, read, "Reme, you must be Miss Mason. We're so honored to host a blogger of your caliber." Maya smiled, not as the woman who'd once built this place, but as the digital nomad persona she'd carefully constructed. "Oh my gosh, this place is already giving me such good vibes. I can't wait to share it with my followers." She lifted her phone and snapped a selfie, casually including Jaime in the background. In that instant, she saw it, a flicker. The smile faltered, just for a heartbeat, before snapping back into place. 1 second was all it took. Maya recognized the crack behind the mask. Something beneath Jaime's surface was breaking. "We've placed you in one of our signature Mountain View suites," Jaime said smoothly, fingers dancing over the keyboard like second nature. "You'll have full access to our wellness amenities, forest therapy trails, our daily empowerment workshops, and the sunrise meditation deck." As she listed the features, Maya quietly studied her face. Pale skin, concealer barely hiding the dark circles beneath her eyes. Every movement was precise, calculated, the body language of someone perpetually on edge, bracing for criticism. "Our concierge team can also arrange special experiences for your content," Jaime continued with forced brightness. "David, our Instagram coordinator, wanted to make sure you know He's available for any professional photography needs. There it was again. Just the slightest shift when she said his name. A tightness around the eyes, a subtle hesitation. Most people wouldn't catch it, but Maya had spent years surviving boardrooms filled with men who complimented her ideas before dismissing them entirely. She had learned to read micro-expressions like they were spreadsheets. "That sounds amazing," Maya replied, accepting the sleek key card as Jaime slid it across the marble counter. She tilted her head slightly, keeping her tone light. "Just curious, how long have you worked here? You seem to know this place better than anyone." For a second, the professional mask slipped. Jaime's smile softened into something almost proud. 2 years next month, she said. "I actually helped design some of the guest experience programs here. The forest therapy concept was my idea, and I built the personalization system we use for the welcome packages." "That's seriously impressive," Maya said genuinely. But then, almost without thinking, she added, "You must love the leadership opportunities here." Like a door slamming shut, Jaime's face froze. Her fingers paused mid-type. When she looked up again, her voice was neutral, her eyes guarded. "I just focus on providing the best guest service I can," she said. "Your suite is on the 4th floor. Elevators are just past the gift shop. Anything else I can help with today?" It was polite, professional, and final. Maya recognized the message loud and clear. Don't ask questions, stay in the lines, be small. She'd seen it in so many women, smart, capable, overachieving women, taught by broken systems to never reach too far, never speak too loudly, and above all, never expect to be seen as more than helpful. "Actually," Maya lowered her voice, leaning in slightly, "just one thing. Between you and me, if this were your first time staying here, what's the one thing you wouldn't miss? Not the brochure stuff, the real thing. The one you'd tell a friend about." For a moment, Jaime's eyes lit up, not for show, but with genuine excitement. "The sunrise meditation deck," she said without hesitation. "It's on the east side, just past the main dining hall. It's not on the official map, so most guests never find it, but if you go there just as the sun breaks over the ridge, it's kind of magic." She caught herself blinking quickly. The sparkle faded, replaced once again by corporate polish. "I mean, all our amenities are wonderful, of course." But Maya had already memorized it. Not just the hidden trail, but the crack in the armor, the flicker of truth, the glimpse of something real behind the glass. She wasn't here for the spa, she wasn't here for content. She was here for that flicker, and to find out what had buried it. "Thank you," Maya replied, her voice gentle, sincere. "I can tell you really care about this place." Something flickered in Jaime's eyes, a fleeting emotion, impossible to name, gone before Maya could fully register it. "Have a wonderful stay, Miss Mason," Jaime said, turning away like nothing out of the ordinary had just passed between them. As the elevator carried Maya to the 4th floor, her mind remained a storm of questions. The suite, exactly as advertised, was a high-price haven. Floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over endless pines, a marble bathroom larger than most New York apartments, and a welcome basket brimming with artisan gifts and locally sourced wellness products. Even in her role as an undercover investigator, Maya couldn't help but admit the design team she had once personally led had created something exceptional. She was arranging her camera equipment when her phone buzzed, a message from her assistant back in San Francisco. "Board meeting moved to Friday. Johnson wants the Q2 figures early. How's the retreat?" Maya turned toward the distant mountains, a heaviness pressing on her chest. Jaime's forced smile. The way she tensed when she mentioned David. Solaria Retreats had been born from Maya's promise to build a sanctuary where women could reclaim their power and voice. But if the very resorts that bore her name were betraying that promise, that afternoon, Maya played the part of the curious tourist. She snapped photos of the facilities, chatted with guests in the communal lounges. What she heard gave her pause. Everyone praised the aesthetics, but their compliments often came with quiet caveats: slow room service, misprinted activity schedules, booking glitches. Nothing egregious enough to raise a red flag on its own. But together, the complaints wove a subtle pattern, one that suggested something deeper was broken beneath the glossy surface. She also noticed a stark difference in the staff dynamics. The male employees moved with ease, relaxed, loud, confident. They joked with each other, made decisions on the fly. The women, however, walked carefully, apologizing often, avoiding direct eye contact, and deferring to their male colleagues, even when they clearly had more knowledge. That night, Maya logged it all in her blogger notebook, the one corporate might see. But the real notebook, the one that held the truth of what was happening here, painted a darker picture. This wasn't just a few bad managers or poor communication. This was a system, rotted from the inside out. She was editing photos when a sound made her freeze. Crying, soft, close. Maya pressed her ear to the door. The sobs were faint, but real. She grabbed her keycard and slipped into the hallway, following the sound down to the dimmed main lobby. After hours, the lights were low, leaving pools of shadow between decorative fixtures. The sound led her to the small break room behind the reception desk. She crouched behind a large potted plant, careful not to make a sound. Through the partially open door, she saw Jaime sitting alone at a table, her shoulders trembling, her voice cracked through muffled sobs. 2 years, covering for him, training new hires, working double shifts, and he gets promoted because he plays golf with the right people. Maya's breath caught. She had suspected, but hearing the heartbreak in Jamie's voice, it felt like a punch to the gut. My mom needs medication. I can't quit. I can't afford to leave, but I can't keep doing this. Jaime pulled out a small notebook and began writing. Her pen scratched across the paper, fast and forceful. Talon Records. F-15. Trained Marcus on reservation system. Stayed until midnight to fix scheduling errors. March. Marcus promoted to supervisor. Every entry was dated, detailed, indisputable. Not complaints, evidence. A door slammed somewhere nearby, both women startled. Jaime quickly shut the notebook, slipped it into her bag, wiped her face, and adjusted her uniform. Then came a man's voice, deep and commanding, familiar. Jamie, why are you still here? She turned, composed, no trace of tears in her expression. Just finishing the end-of-day reports, Mr. Klein. The blogger wants to schedule some specialty experiences for tomorrow. Right, that influencer. Make sure she's treated like royalty. HQ's watching our social metrics closely. A pause. From the shadows, Maya knew. This wasn't a retreat anymore. It was a battlefield. Head home and get some rest. Team huddles early tomorrow. Yes, Mr. Klein. Good night. Only once his footsteps faded did Maya step out from hiding. She glanced back at the break room, now empty save for a few crumpled tissues in the trash. David Klein. That name was now etched into her memory like a warning. Tomorrow she would begin digging, but tonight she stood still beneath the soft glow of the backlit slogans she had once lovingly written. Words like empowerment starts from within now rang hollow. As shame crept over her like fog. The glass ceiling here hadn't cracked. It had been reinforced, sealed with polite language and invisible expectations. Elsewhere in the resort, Jaime Torres stood in the staff bathroom, reapplying concealer for the 3rd time. The dark circles under her eyes were nearly permanent now. Scars left by months of staying up until 2:00 a.m., researching new insurance policies that might cover her mother's prescriptions. You've got this, she whispered to her reflection, a mantra she'd repeated every morning for 6 straight months. Just get through today. 10 minutes until the morning meeting. She still hadn't printed the guest satisfaction report, Marcus's responsibility, but one he routinely dumped on her like an unspoken rule. As she passed the staff bulletin board, she saw it again, the old framed photo. Jaime Torres, guest experience trailblazer. Beneath it, the glowing article about her forest therapy program. It had increased guest retention by 23% and generated over $50,000, 0 cents, in added revenue. But pinned just below it was a newer, colder announcement. Congratulations to Marcus Sullivan on his promotion to Guest Services Manager. Jaime swallowed the bitterness rising in her throat. Jamie, report to the meeting room now. The voice snapped through the hallway like a whip. She didn't flinch. She just walked forward. But inside, something had shifted. She was no longer just enduring. She was remembering. And soon she would be reckoning. Jaime hurriedly grabbed her documents and rushed into the meeting room where everyone was already seated. Marcus sat to David's right, exuding the quiet confidence of someone freshly promoted. Maya had just taken her seat when David began. Customer feedback is decent overall, but we need to improve productivity. HQ is pushing for better efficiency metrics. Jaime parted her lips, ready to mention the process improvement plan she had submitted the week before, but David pushed forward without giving her the floor. Marcus has some great ideas on revamping the check-in procedure. Marcus hesitated, visibly uneasy. Actually, that idea was Jaime's. Right, David cut in quickly, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. Great thinking. Jaime, go ahead and handle the technical requirements. I'll need a full proposal by Friday. Burned. Every word scorched Jaime's chest. She'd already written that plan. She had submitted it 3 weeks ago. The email subject line had been crystal clear. Mobile check-in implementation plan. After the meeting, she walked slowly back to her desk, her hands mechanically straightening a stack of hotel flyers that didn't actually need fixing. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. Doctor rescheduled for Thursday. Insurance needs pre-approval for the new medication. Can you help call them? Jaime closed her eyes and took a long, deep breath. Her mother, Elena Torres, had been battling rheumatoid arthritis for over 5 years now. The condition had worsened after her father passed. Every day since had been a fight, not just against pain, but against a system of insurance bureaucracy designed to wear people down. Jaime had applied for that promotion 3 times, the same position Marcus now held. The higher salary would have meant better coverage, less worry, a little breathing room. Instead, she got nothing. During her lunch break, Jaime sat alone in her car and opened a leather notebook she called her Ledger of Lost Chances. March 15, trained Jessica on the reservation system, stayed 2 hours after shift to walk her through billing. March 22, designed internal communication workflow for housekeeping team, significantly reduced check-in delay complaints. March 28, David took credit for customer service handbook in front of regional manager Thompson. No correction offered. On the next page, April 3, Marcus promoted. I applied 3 times. No explanation for rejection. Each entry was like a paper cut. Small, but cumulatively devastating. A mosaic of erasure. Her best friend Maria had been the first to tell her, "Write it all down, Mishu. Dates, names, who was in the room. You never know when it'll matter." At first, Jaime had resisted. It felt like admitting defeat. But over time, the notebook had become both a shield and a burden, a place to store truths no one wanted to face. April 15. Corrected guest invoice error in 10 minutes. David told Thompson it was a team effort. April 20. Proposed the personalized welcome package system. David called it an intriguing idea in the meeting, assigned it to Marcus to develop. April 25th. Stayed until midnight fixing scheduling errors caused by Marcus. He thanked me by saying, You're really supporting leadership well." Her handwriting wavered in later entries, jagged strokes born of sleepless nights and tightly contained emotion. What hurt most wasn't the lack of advancement, it was being made invisible. David, with his uncanny ability to sow self-doubt in capable women, had done it with surgical precision. "You're very valuable in your current role. Leadership requires a certain presence. Maybe focus on building more confidence first." Those words burrowed deep, making Jaime question everything. Was I too quiet? Too assertive? Did I phrase things wrong, dressed wrong? The phone on her desk rang, pulling her out of her spiral. "Solaria Pines, this is Jaime." "Hi, this is Leela Mason. I'm in room 407. I'd like to arrange something special for my article." Jaime straightened in her chair, a flicker of light breaking through the clouds. "Of course, Ms. Mason. What did you have in mind?" "I want to do a behind-the-scenes piece about what really makes this place unique. Maybe shadow a few team members. I was especially intrigued by the creative programs you mentioned yesterday." For a moment, Jaime felt something that had nearly vanished. Someone who wanted to listen. Someone who seemed to care. "It sounds amazing. Would you prefer to focus on guest experience or operational innovation?" "Both. I get the sense that you really understand how this place works." Jaime smiled. The first real one in days. Maybe. Just maybe. Someone finally saw her. She gently closed her ledger and stepped back into the light, unaware that the woman asking the questions wasn't just a curious travel blogger. She was Maya Williams, a former data analyst turned CEO. And Maya knew one thing better than anyone. Numbers don't lie. And the numbers in Solaria Pines' internal system were screaming. Male employees were promoted after an average of 8.2 months. Female employees? 23.7 months, if they were promoted at all. But of 12 management positions, only 2 were held by women, both in traditionally feminine roles like spa coordination or guest care. The position Marcus had been handed. 5 qualified women had applied. Every one of them had stronger performance reviews. But none of them had been invited to the golf course. But the hardest-hitting blow came from the resignation letters. In them, 12 women had quit within just 18 months, 12 out of a staff of 38. Maya's phone buzzed. "Insurance needs the official retention numbers for Solaria Pines. Should we send the official figures?" She stared at the message. The official numbers were fine, but the truth was a seismic event waiting to erupt. "Hold off. I'm reviewing a few anomalies." She shut her laptop, grabbed her camera, and stepped outside. She didn't just need data. She needed to see the system with her own eyes, in every nod, every glance, every pause between polished words. And maybe she wasn't just rewriting a story. She was about to rewrite the future for a generation of women who'd been quietly surviving. In the dining hall, Maya stood still as David Klein casually interrupted a young female server to question a male busboy about table turnover rates. She watched more closely during the afternoon shift change and saw David laughing freely with the all-male maintenance team while ignoring the women silently cleaning rooms around him. But it wasn't until she overheard a conversation in the employee lounge that Maya felt the blood drain from her face. Pretending to fumble with the coffee machine near a half-open door, Maya clearly heard David and assistant manager Tom Bradley walk in. "Another complaint email," Tom whispered. "Same old story. Someone thinks they deserve a promotion just because they work hard." David scoffed. "Let me guess, Jaime again?" "No, it's Marcus. He says Jaime's the one who should have gotten the manager job, not him." David laughed louder. "That boy needs to learn one thing. Business isn't about fairness, it's about leverage. Jaime's good, I'll give her that, but she doesn't have leadership presence, too emotional, too soft." Maya's fingers clenched around her coffee cup. It took everything in her not to storm in. "What about the other complaints?" Tom asked. There was a pause before David replied, his voice quieter. "What complaints? I haven't seen anything worth escalating." Maya went still. She pulled out her phone and hit record. "You're deleting them?" Tom's voice was shocked. "I'm curating," David said smoothly. "There's a difference, Tommy. Corporate doesn't need to read every little sob story. Around here, we redefine what qualified means. You keep whiners in place by giving them more busy work. Promote the ones who understand the system. HQ just wants to see clean numbers. What if someone goes over your head and reports directly to HQ? Who's going to believe a front desk clerk over two spotless senior managers? Besides, I have documentation on all of them. Jaime's had 3 attitude coaching sessions this year. On paper, she's a problem employee." Maya held her breath. This wasn't just mismanagement. This was a fully functioning machine of suppression. The key is to keep women in their place. Give them just enough to keep them grateful. Promote the guys who play the game. We're not breaking rules. We're being flexible with company policy. What about the new blogger? Perfect opportunity to showcase how empowering this place is. I'll make sure she meets the right people, sees the right things. When she leaves, she'll write a glowing piece about how we're a paradise for women. Maya felt physically ill. They were weaponizing the very values she had built this company on, turning empowerment into a PR mask for rot. "And remember," David finished, his voice turning cold, "what happens at Solaria stays at Solaria. I'll keep this empire intact." When their footsteps finally faded, Maya stopped the recording, her hands trembling as she backed up the file to her secure system. Her mind flashed with images of Jaime and the notebook full of lost chances. The 12 women who had quietly walked away, Marcus, who knew the truth but felt powerless, and herself. The woman who had once etched the words, "The future is female, strength begins within," into the glass walls, now reflecting betrayal. David Klein had turned her life's mission into a cruel joke. But he had made one fatal mistake. He forgot that the blogger was in fact the founder of the empire he was gutting, and now she had both the authority and the cause to burn it all down. The only question left was, how much evidence would it take to ignite the fire? Tonight, Maya would begin making calls. Tomorrow morning, the reckoning would begin. The next day, as Maya attended the morning yoga class to maintain her cover, Olivia Martinez, a quiet HR assistant, slipped a folded note into her hand. "Employee library, 3 p.m. Need to talk." Maya wasn't surprised. She'd noticed Olivia early on, a woman who tensed like a coiled spring every time David entered a room. The employee library was little more than a storage room for training manuals and policy handbooks. When Maya stepped in, Olivia was already waiting, clutching a thick folder like armor. "I saw you talking to Jaime, and I heard you're writing about workplace culture," Olivia began. Maya nodded. "I've always been interested in what lies beneath the surface, what really makes a place worth working at." Olivia glanced toward the door, then looked back. "What if I told you this place doesn't operate the way it claims to?" She opened the folder and pointed to a section highlighted in yellow, "Internal Promotion Policy." All opportunities for promotion must be posted internally for at least 7 days. Decisions are based on performance, tenure, leadership capability, and alignment with company values, regardless of gender, race, or other protected traits. Founded by the book. Then Olivia pulled out another handbook, the version distributed under David's management. Same section, different wording. Promotion opportunities will be posted internally. Decisions are based on performance, leadership potential, and cultural fit with current management. The mention of gender protections gone. The timeline requirement gone. The phrase cultural fit, corporate speak for implicit bias. Now look at the harassment reporting procedure, Olivi said, flipping to more pages, each one marked with sticky notes. The original version allowed employees to bypass their direct manager if that person was the one being accused. The new version required all complaints to go through the department manager. Meaning, David. How long has this been happening? Maya asked. At least 8 months, David said. HQ approved the changes to better match operational realities, but no one ever verified that. And you kept the originals? I kept everything. My grandmother used to say, for women, documentation is your first line of defense. Olivia's voice grew steadier. I noticed patterns. Complaints disappearing. Performance reviews edited. Training opportunities reassigned to male employees. Maya met Olivia's eyes and saw not just fear, but fury that had been suppressed too long. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm done being part of it. Yesterday I saw Jaime training a new guy, and I already know he's going to be promoted over her. I have a daughter, and I don't want her to grow up thinking this is normal. Footsteps echoed just outside. Olivia quickly shut the binder and tucked it back into the cabinet. Time to draw on all the possible reactions. Recetas. Johanna held back her anger. All of us stiffened in terror. Yoso, David's voice rang out, cold and sharp. David's voice rang out, cold and sharp. Maya and Olivia exchanged a glance, then silently stepped behind a small curtain. Through the narrow window, they could see David pacing inside the meeting room, while Jaime sat opposite him, back rigid like a drawn bowstring. I hear you've been making suggestions during staff meetings, David said, his tone cutting. Sounds like you think you're better than management. They couldn't hear her response, but Maya watched as Jaime lifted her chin, eyes unwavering. Let's be clear, Jaime. Your job is to execute, not to suggest. To support, not to challenge. This is a business, not a democracy. Maya clenched her fists. She had heard these exact words in countless boardrooms, but hearing them now, directed at Jaime, inside a room built from her own dreams, was a knife to the heart. But this time Maya would not look away. This time, the truth would not be smothered into silence. Through the small glass window, she saw Janie's hands tremble in her lap, clenched tightly. Even from a distance, Maya could see it. This young woman was fighting to hold back tears. I'll be documenting this as insubordination and disrespect for the chain of command, David said coolly. One more instance like this and we'll have to reconsider whether you're a cultural fit for the team. A wave of fury surged through Maya's chest like a storm rising from deep water. This wasn't just discrimination anymore. It was psychological warfare, a calculated campaign to break strong women until they either left or submitted. Jaime emerged from the office 5 minutes later, face flushed with shame, eyes brimming with unspoken anger. She walked past the employee library without noticing Maya and Olivia, but Maya clearly saw her hand shaking as she gripped the disciplinary memo. This has to stop, Maya whispered. Olivia nodded, her voice low but resolute. But who can stop it? Jamie has been documenting everything for months, but records without power are just a diary. Marcus feels guilty, but he won't risk his new title, and the other women, they've already been broken. Maya looked toward David's office. He was lounging back in his chair, a smug smile on his face. He was shielded by doctored policies, a powerful network of good old boys, and the belief that no one would ever challenge him. But David Klein had miscalculated. He thought Layla Mason was just another naive travel blogger looking for healing stories. He didn't know she was Maya Williams, the very founder of the empire he was poisoning, a woman with the power, authority, and will to bring it all down. Maya pulled out her phone and photographed every page from both HR handbooks, capturing the policy numbers and revision dates. The evidence was mounting, and tomorrow morning, she would turn that evidence into action. 10:30 a.m. Maya stood in front of the mirror in her suite, the CEO badge gleaming on her blazer in the morning light. For the past 4 days, she had been Layla Mason, smiling blogger, curious observer. But today, she returned to the name that had built this place, Maya Williams, founder, dreamer, and now, enforcer. The helicopter was approaching the resort. At 10:47, it would land just as David kicked off the team meeting on the forest meditation deck, the spot he'd chosen for its scenic beauty and perfect lighting for quarterly report photos. What he didn't know, Maya had scheduled a surprise inspection with the regional director and 2 board members on board. She brought everything: gender-based promotion statistics, audio recordings of internal conversations, photos of altered policy manuals, Olivia's testimony, and, most importantly, a full copy of Jaime's ledger, quietly scanned during lunch the day before. The meditation deck glowed under a soft golden sun. David stood in the center of a staffed circle, smiling confidently like a king addressing his court. Jamie lingered at the back, her face still marked by this morning's humiliation. Maya emerged from behind the trees, her voice transmitted directly through the helicopter's comms to the VIP guests on board. "I'd like to make a schedule change. There's something the entire team needs to witness." She strode onto the deck, camera bag slung across her shoulder, CEO badge catching the light. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. All eyes turned toward her. "Good morning," Maya said, calm and composed. "I'm Maya Williams, founder and CEO of Solaria Retreats. Most of you probably know me as Layla Mason, the travel blogger staying here this week." No one moved. No one breathed. David froze. Finney's eyes widened, her mouth parting in shock. "Ms. Williams," David stammered, stepping back slightly. "What a surprise, we had no idea." "I'm conducting an internal investigation into systemic discrimination," Maya interrupted. "I imagine you didn't know." She pulled out the first folder. "These are statistics showing that male employees are promoted 65% faster than female employees, even when their performance is equal or lower." David opened his mouth to push back, but Maya didn't let him speak. "And this," she said, holding up her phone, "is a recording of your conversation with Assistant Manager Tom Bradley, where you admit to curating complaint reports, redefining merit, and keeping headquarters in the dark." David's face went pale. Employees exchanged glances. A few nodded. 1 or 2 were already crying. "And finally," Maya said slowly, "you've been distributing falsified HR manuals, removing gender protections, eliminating transparency, and funneling all complaints directly to your own office." She turned to the staff. "For the past 18 months, you've been operating under a false system. Your contributions have been devalued, your voices silenced, your potential buried." Her eyes met Jamie. "Amy Torres, would you like to finish this story?" Jaime's face went ghost white, then flushed red. For a moment, Maya thought she would decline. But Jaime stepped forward. Her hands trembled, but her voice held firm. "My name is Jaime Torres. I've worked here for nearly 2 years. I've trained 5 people, and every one of them was promoted before me. I created programs that brought in over $200,000 in revenue. Yesterday, I was written up for suggesting an operational improvement." She held up the ledger of stolen chances. Every stolen idea, every time I was passed over, every time I was told I wasn't leadership material. I wrote it all down. David tried to interject. "Jamie, I understand this is emotional." "Don't," Jaime said, her voice like a blade. Don't you dare call me emotional. I'm speaking the truth. She opened the book and began reading. Line by line, each entry was a wake-up call. Heads nodded. Tears fell. I stayed silent because I needed this job, because my mother needed medication, because I was warned that if I spoke up, I'd never be hired again. But silence didn't protect me. It only protected you. She pointed directly at David. You made me question myself. You made me think I wasn't enough. You made me small so you could feel bigger. Silence, but not of fear, of realization. The helicopter landed. Patricia Hayes and 2 board members stepped onto the deck, faces a mix of shock and fury. David opened his mouth to object, but Maya raised her hand. Security will escort you to your office to collect your belongings. Your contract is terminated, effective immediately. Tom Bradley's too. As David was led away, Maya turned back to Jaime, who still clutched the ledger like a shield. Jaime, Maya said gently, would you be open to discussing a new role? And for the first time in months, Jaime Torres smiled, a real, radiant smile. The glass ceiling hadn't just cracked, it had shattered. 3 months later, Maya stood once more on the old meditation deck, the Colorado peaks bathed in golden morning light. The inspirational quotes etched into the glass walls were still there, but this time they truly meant something. Morning report is ready, Ms. Williams, Jaime Torres said as she approached, tablet in hand, her new Deputy Director of Operations badge gleaming in the early sun. Maya smiled, remembering that first night. Jaime sitting hunched over in the staff break room, crying and writing in her notebook. Now, she no longer wrote to remember pain. She was writing a new chapter of her life. The transformation in Jaime was astounding. But what moved Maya most wasn't how much Jaime had changed. It was the fact that she hadn't changed at all. She had simply been allowed to become who she was always meant to be. Unmasked, unhindered, and finally, the first graduation ceremony for the leadership incubator is next week, Jaime said, sitting beside her. 12 participants, including 3 from other Caria branches who heard about what we're doing here. That program had been Jamie's dream, her first proposal after her promotion. A thorough and strategic plan to discover, develop, and defend overlooked talent hidden in the shadows of the organization. The program paired rising leaders with senior mentors, offered tailored training to combat imposter syndrome and confidence gaps, and most importantly, created a pathway beyond the traditional good old boys networks that had long dictated advancement. Olivia Martinez is presenting her workplace equity audit system to the board next month, Jaime added. Patricia Hayes said it's the most comprehensive anti-discrimination protocol she's ever reviewed. Maya's smile deepened with pride. One of her first decisions after firing David Klein was to promote Olivia, the quiet warrior who had safeguarded justice with meticulous documentation, to Director of Human Resources for the entire system. Now, Olivia oversaw policy enforcement across all 43 Solaria locations, with anonymous reporting portals, external investigation procedures, and quarterly audits she personally conducted. Heard you made quite an impression at the ops efficiency meeting? Maya asked, her tone playful with pride. Jaime grinned. That credit goes to Marcus. His analysis on guest satisfaction since the management restructure was truly impressive. Marcus Sullivan, once elevated by a biased system, had chosen to step down from his unearned role and join Jamie as an equal partner. His guilt became his drive. Now, Marcus not only helped build new programs but also mentored male employees on recognizing unconscious bias and advancing equity. Numbers don't lie, Jaime continued. Guest satisfaction is up 34%. Employee retention has increased by 89%. Revenue has exceeded projections by 12%. So, Maya chuckled. It turns out that when you promote based on actual merit, the business thrives. She laughed, but inside, she remained quietly stunned. After years of trying to prove that employee well-being was the foundation of success, she now had proof, undeniable, measurable, real. "How's your mother?" Maya asked. Jamie's smile softened. "The new insurance covers everything. She started physical therapy last month, and she's getting around much more easily. She keeps asking when she can visit the resort where her daughter became the boss, as she calls it. Anytime she wants," Maya said warmly. "I'd love to meet the woman who raised someone strong enough to document injustice for months and never lose hope." "She wants to frame a page from my old ledger," Jaime laughed. "Says writing it down is the first step toward changing it." They sat in comfortable silence, watching sunlight slowly stretch across the mountain ridges. Below, the shift change rolled out with practiced grace. No more staff moving like they were walking on eggshells. No more strained smiles or silenced ideas. "Maya," Jaime said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Anything?" "Why did you do all of this? I mean, you could have just fired David and moved on. Implemented new policies from corporate and called it fixed, but instead, you changed everything. Not just here, but company-wide. Why?" Maya was silent for a long while. The light caught in her eyes as memories flickered through. 25 years ago, I was passed over for a promotion at a tech startup," she began. "My boss told me I had too strong a personality to lead, too intense, too disruptive to the team dynamic." She gave a wry smile. "I was their best programmer, but I made the men uncomfortable because I knew more than they did." "So you started your own company?" "Eventually, but first I spent 3 years trying to shrink myself, soften my tone, dim my light. I changed how I spoke, downplayed my success, let others take credit. I thought if I could just fit into their mold, I'd finally earn their respect." Jaime nodded knowingly. "It doesn't work, does it?" "No, because the problem was never us. The problem was a system built to keep women supporting from the sidelines while lifting mediocre men into leadership." Maya stood and walked toward the glass wall, resting her hand on a quote she had once etched there. She believed she could, so she did. "When I heard your voice crying in that break room, I heard myself, the woman I used to be, who documented every slight, every stolen idea, every closed door, hoping someone, someday, would care enough to listen." She turned back to Jaime. "I realized that building a values-based company wasn't enough. I had to actively protect those values, relentlessly, and I had to make sure that women like you, women like us, had the power to protect themselves." "The glass ceiling isn't just gone," Kami whispered. "You made sure it can't be rebuilt." Maya nodded, eyes gleaming with something fiercer than hope. "That was always the point, not just to break through, but to clear the path for everyone coming behind us." A soft knock on the glass interrupted them. Marcus entered, holding 2 coffees and wearing that same knowing smile. "Figured you could use some caffeine before your regional director meeting." "Thank you," Maya said, accepting the cup. "Ready for the presentation on the leadership development expansion?" "Ready to change the world, one policy at a time," Marcus replied with mock seriousness, then broke into a grin. "Jaime's been an excellent teacher in the art of systematic revolution." The 3 of them walked back toward the main building, each step light, steady, and in Maya's heart stirred a feeling she hadn't known in years. Deep fulfillment, not of victory, but of a collective dream made real, hand in hand. The glass ceiling was gone. In its place stood a ladder, sturdy, strong, and open to all. Behind them, morning light spilled across the meditation deck. The inspirational quotes remained, but now, for the first time, they rang true. The future is female, and this time it had witnesses. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Moments of Quiet Truth, where we believe that the human spirit is never truly defeated, only waiting to rise.